With the world of coaching evolving and the carousel is always changing, we're going to sit down with some coaches and we're going to figure out why they coach, how they coach, what they coach, and most importantly, we're going to figure out why they chose this profession. My name is Casey Wilkinson, and I'm your host of the Coach's Why podcast.
That was my Coach's Why.
Welcome back, everybody. We are back to the Coach's Why podcast. We are here with Coach Marquise Camp from St. Andrews University. He's the head wrestling coach, men's wrestling coach. There, how you doing today, Coach?
I'm doing good, and I am the women's head coach too.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes,
Multitasking. I feel you. Okay. Well, welcome to the show, man. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, man. I'm glad it finally was able to work out.
Yeah, we've been. I know it's been a few weeks talking and stuff, so it's good to finally get you on here. So, but before we get you going, and before we talk a little bit about your coaching journey and everything like that, I kind of want to talk to you a little bit about you as a person, and kind of about your journey to getting to the coaching position you're in. So, where did you grow up, and when did you get involved in the sport of wrestling?
I grew up in South Carolina, Gaffney, South Carolina. It's kind of funny how it started. I had no plans on ever really wrestling. I was like every other, urban city kid, and thought I was Michael Jordan growing up, along with Deion Sanders and every other mainstream athlete. And it's crazy. Like summer of my 8th grade, going to 9th grade year, went to basketball camp with the varsity basketball team, and actually got moved up and was like got some reps with the JV team. And I was terrible at basketball, but I thought that was going to be it. I'm like 5'2", 98 pounds. I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, I'll be Muggsy Bogues out here or something. But yeah, long story short, so went to try out. I'm diving over loose balls, sliding across the court, like going crazy, like screwing drills up, like I don't know what's going on. And basically I got cut. So, our school was set up kind of weird, and basically you go downstairs from the main gym, you go down through the basement, and the wrestling team was in there practicing. So basically everybody that got cut was kind of walking through the little wrestling room, which was like a dungeon, man. Like, by today's standards, that would probably not be a safe place to practice, because it was all kind of like it was wild. So I'm walking through there, and seen this kid I went to school. Well, was in one of my classes. He's like, "Hi, y'all must have got cut." He started laughing. I got mad, and I shot what later on I was able to figure out, which was a double leg, and I took him halfway across the mat and tried to kill him. And next thing I know, I'm wrestling, and yeah, that's kind of how it started.
Anger pulled out, and that's how it started. I feel that. Okay.
Yeah, definitely
Michael
inner
Jordan.
water boyish.
Well, hey, Michael Jordan got cut whenever he was young too, but
Yeah, but I was not him. So,
Yeah, okay. So whenever it comes to, wrestling, you started because you got cut from basketball, and that obviously led to the career you had. How did you, when was that when you got cut? And then how did your high school career turn out after that in wrestling?
That was what, God, 1997.
Okay.
And yeah, so yeah. And my first year wrestling was horrible. Like I had no clue what I was doing. I remember like losing one match, like 26-24, and me and this kid was just like rolling around the whole match, and like neither one of us knew what was going on. And I remember I cut him at the end of the match, and I didn't know. And he took off running. I took off chasing him like in a circle, like it's like what you see at one of those little youth tournaments. And I remember I like tried to lock his lace, and we fell out of bounds. It was terrible. But I think one of the biggest things was doing that, and really kind of starting to understand the off-season grind, and definitely get developed, because luckily we had Gardner-Webb University, which isn't too far from us, and me and one of my best friends, we religiously start going up there and practicing, because we didn't really have a consistent coach until our senior year in high school, and it kind of sucked. but we learned by helping each other, and we went to freestyle tournaments. Like I remember my first freestyle tournament experience. I tried to hit a stand up, and I got 5 that had shades on the rest of the weekend. Like all my first, ironically, has been pretty bad, and that's one I won't forget. But I mean, it was just always one of those things. Like I've always been that kind of person. Like when somebody tell me, "Oh, you can't do this, you can't do that," you always want to kind of change the narrative and kind of push through odds. And that's of course what wrestling teaches us. How to battle through adversity and be able to kind of navigate through tough situations and kind of get the achievements and what you're looking for. At the end.
Right. No, I agree. I 100% agree. It's one of those things that, there's a lot of sports where you can't really get better on your own, and it's really cool to hear that you were able to find a way. Your friend as well is trying to get there. And I'm sure as a coach, that's something that you look for whenever it comes to recruiting or just having kids be a part of your, on your roster, kids
Sure.
become mindset.
Yeah, and honestly, I've taken a different approach to this. I sit back and I watch and I listen and kind of see how people do things. And my biggest thing is, especially when I talk to recruit, talk to their parents, I'm brutally honest. Like I'm straightforward about everything. But honestly, at the end of the day, especially here, wrestling is a small part of what I care about. Like I feel like if you can get it done in the classroom, you can hold yourself accountable. You can remember that whole student first, athlete second, have that mindset, and you just want a chance. I mean, that tells me everything I want to know. Because, like I said, at the end of the day, if you're doing everything right in life, like going to class, turning your work in, not getting in trouble, hanging everything up in your locker the right way, showing up to practice on time, doing all that little stuff right, the wrestling part's the easy part. That's
Right.
the thing. It works itself out. And like you need to go after these, this, that, and third. I was like, honestly, the kid was a 3-time state champion. I mean, he's a man, but he's got like 1.9 GPA or something, or he's got a little bit of baggage, or he's definitely like not a very high character person versus just that state qualifier who's a 3-5 kid who busts his butt. He's one of the first people in the room, one of the last people to leave. That's the kind of kid you want. I mean, because that kid's gonna go out there and he's already showed that he can, be able to put the work in full time, and he can handle it in the classroom. I mean, that's a win all the way around. Even if they're not a safe, I mean, I still believe a lot of kids can be late bloomers and really develop at this level because honestly, in college, all you got to do is just be tough and be willing to put the work in and allow yourself to be coachable, and your ceiling is like extremely high.
Right. Yeah, I agree. That's actually one of the things I tell my kids whenever they talk about going to the next level is it's a lot, it is harder, obviously. You're facing a lot tougher kids as a whole, right? And I think that's a culture shock essentially for the kids. And obviously the responsibilities of college is much different. And obviously, we dive deep a little bit into that, but as an overall, I try to let the kids know, like, if you just stick to it, get through your first year, do everything that do your best your first year, both like you mentioned in the classroom, responsibilities out of it, on the mat, whatever. It'll start eventually becoming a second nature to you, just like how it is in high school, and things will start being easier, things will slow down, blah blah blah, the whole 9 yards.
Oh
Um,
yeah, sure.
I try to preach that as well, and I know you and me spoke. I think it was last summer when we talked at first, and then we kind of here and there as we've gone along. But it's cool that you haven't changed your approach to your recruiting because that's what you told me last time we spoke, or at least the first time, about what you're looking for in your athletes. And, like you said, you're very blunt, and that's what you told me. This is what I'm looking for, and it's good to see that you haven't changed much on what you're looking for because I think that's what, like you said, a stable coach. That's something that will help build your program with numbers as well as success.
Yeah, I remember not too long ago, had a kid come recruit, he was coming up on a visit and he texted me, he was like, "So what's the itinerary? What's the agenda?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "So what's the whole, schedule and stuff?" I was like, "Bro, I'm gonna show up. I have a couple of guys with me. We're gonna meet you and your parents at admissions. You're gonna get to hang out with a couple of our guys, and we're just gonna talk about life. We're gonna eat lunch, we're gonna hang out. come work out with us, get to have a media day, and that's it. I was like, I try not to, like, I can't just put on this whole dog and pony presentation of, like, I really believe if you're, especially with parents and stuff, if I've always put myself in that situation, like, I want to know that where my kid, I want to see the real version of everything. I don't want to see nothing that's, orchestrated and nothing that's going to be consistent, and I let them definitely talk to the kids because they're definitely going to see things from the kids see a lot of things that I don't see. They're here every day. They're in the classrooms. They're going through this. They can tell the kid if I'm a jerk, I mean, they're gonna be honest because they're gonna give their perspective on what they see and what's going on. And the parents really want to make sure that their kids are gonna be okay. Because I tell every kid, young man, woman we talk to, I was like, this is one of the biggest choices you're gonna make in your life. I said, but at the end of the day, you put yourself in this situation. Now you get a chance to narrate your own story. And,
Right.
Hopefully we get to be a part of, helping you figure that out and guiding you on the way through. Because at the end of the day, kid comes here, I don't care if they ever won the national championship, All American, because we all know those chances. I mean, everybody's not going to be able to do that. And that's just the hard reality. Kids don't like to hear that. Parents don't like, but it's the truth. At the end of the day, wrestling's going to stop for everybody at some point. But that degree, that's not going to go anywhere. What you get from that and what you're able to do when you get later on in life, and I'm crippled walking in the grocery store and you walk up to me like, hey, coach, this is my family, this is my wife, kids, blah, 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 this is what I'm doing, that's the win. And I think as coaches or just in general, like wrestling, it doesn't matter. I think a lot of us get so much caught up in the wins and losses. Now, wins, losses, I mean, they do matter. Not trying to contradict what I'm saying, but we get caught up in not really remembering our whole why and what the whole purpose is. And the whole purpose is kid, making sure the kids got a good experience and making sure they enjoy the sport that we all fell in love with and getting them not to hate the sport, so.
Right. No, I 100% agree. So, I mean, as you developed in the sport, right? Obviously now you're coaching, but as you developed in high school, and you became, you fell in love with the sport. Did you? I don't think you ever. I don't think I asked you this. I haven't asked you this today, but I don't know if I've ever asked you this. Did you have a chance to wrestle at the next level?
Yes. I was blessed enough, and honestly, that was the thing that I wasn't even really looking to do. It just kind of happened. Happened to run into my high school coach, get ready to go start working at Freightliner plant back home, and he was like, "Yo, Spartanburg Methodist Junior College, which they dropped the program a couple years ago." He's like, they started a team, and I was like, "Dude, I'm not gonna be able to get into school anywhere, because coming out of high school, I didn't do very underachieved very badly. I had a lot of stuff going on, and hopefully, and that's kind of one of the things to help me not be a victim of my circumstance. But mom's not there, and grandma's kind of raised you, and she had 2 strokes, and I remember living in the dark there for like 2 months. Well, part of that year, and I ended up moving in with one of my best friends and his parents. They kind of took me in, and we both joined the military and stuff. Like I said, college was like far away from my mind, and coach was like, "Give it a shot, man. Let's see what happens." And I went and applied. I got in on academic probation. Really had to grind and figure some stuff out, and luckily I was blessed enough to push through and really understand and start to kind of develop. And kind of like I said, because I always tell kids all the time, wrestling takes care of wrestling, and you always got to pay stuff forward. And up and down kind of in college and stuff. And it wasn't until like my last year and I got hurt. I tore my ACL, and I was kind of just sitting to practice, just watching, and things kind of started to make sense for me. Like sitting there hurt, like I really started to understand, like wrestling finally kind of made sense to me. And I was like, oh my God, this makes so much sense now. And then it was just like one of those things, like probably need to be coaching. I said, that's probably what our next step's gonna be in life. And I kind of jumped into it, and really ain't never looked back.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I understand that. I think a lot of people, not everybody. I think some people just sometimes get thrown into positions to coach and then they like it. But I was kind of the same way. I whenever I was in college, I realized like I want to coach this.
Yeah.
And everybody who wants to do that from an early age, there's some moment within that sport or within a conversation or within something that really kind of flips the switch. Like, yeah, I want to coach this, or I want to be a coach of some reason, or I want to coach something for this reason. So I think that's cool that essentially that flip switched. That's hard to say,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
to do that. So it sounds like you really weren't planning on it going to college, but you had somebody around you telling you, hey, you know, you should try. That's all
Yeah.
conversation with them. So did you really have a recruiting process then, or was it more of just I'm gonna go here because it's an opportunity for me to go here?
Yeah, it was actually was a whole process, and big thank you because I always give him shout out Coach Tony Carazano at Spartanburg Methodist for giving me and I always tell people like give me a second chance in life because I had a couple of places talk to me out of high school, but nothing really crazy, and I was part of one of the first recruiting, the first signing class at Spartanburg Methodist, and like I said, he gave me a chance, and he's like always been one of my biggest allies and stuff. To this day, I talk to him probably once a month. Kind of check in and always asking him for advice and stuff. But if he wouldn't have seen something, or I mean, he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to be like, okay, sure, let's give this kid a chance. But he did, and I would not probably be in the situation I'm in now if it wasn't for him, believing in me then. And it kind of goes back to that, you always got to pay it forward. So there's another Marquise Camp or somebody like me that's running around, trying to figure this life thing out and probably want the chance, but don't think they're good enough or think they're in a good enough situation. But especially when you're talking to people, and I think I'm pretty good. You can get a feel, like really, if somebody's really 100%, like, hey, this is it. I'm gonna give this my all, and that's the beauty part of recruiting the process, man. It's beautiful when you connect with these young people and stuff, and you can hear it in their voice, or when you meet them, you can just see that it's just locked in, and they just, man, like, thank you, and that's what it's all about, man. Giving people the opportunity to be successful in life. I mean, at the end of the day, kind of that's what we all here for anyway, regardless of what people think. To help each other navigate through this. And luckily, I've been blessed enough. This is my channel, my way of being able to help people kind of navigate through life.
Right. No, that's awesome. I really like to hear that. So it sounds like that coach was a big factor and played a big factor in your life. But outside of him, or you can put him in the same category, was there ever a coach that made an impact on your life, and why? Is the question I like to ask, because I feel like everybody has a coach that either positively or negatively affected them, right? And I think that might be, and some people may have never had a negative coach, because some people have the mindset that they just learned what they did or didn't like from that coach and put it in their repertoire. Um, but was there ever a coach that made an impact on you, and why? So if you want to say that that's the coach that did it, great. If there's other coaches you want to add to that, what's the reason behind that?
Oh well, him, Coach Ben Starr, who's at Limestone with us, our assistant coaches, Anthony Coleman, Trent Goodell, all of them played a small part in where I am now and why I'm here, and definitely get me to understand that, because Starr, I was terrified of him. Like, man, never smiled, never did anything, just looked at us straight faces. I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah,
is he gonna kill me today or what's gonna happen? But
yeah.
we laugh and joke about that all the time, man. He always like stood by my side and definitely, allowed me to and just like I say, you just never forget the things. And I definitely took something from all of those coaches. Even when I first started coaching, John Rent's giving me my first chance as a volunteer assistant with him at Chesney, and Coach Chad Nelson at Greer, and just basically taking something from everybody. And that's kind of funny because that's kind of the way I always talk to our kids. Hey, take 3 positives, 2 negatives. Look at the positive things, build that into kind of where I am now. Look at some stuff that I didn't think might not work or might not, really be feasible, and just definitely, try to cultivate all that together into one and kind of build myself up. Because I was actually telling a guy yesterday, I was like, man, if I ever get to the point where I feel like I know it all, especially in wrestling, then I need to do something else. Like, you always got to try to evolve, and definitely try to, like I said, a lot of it's trial and error and stuff, and just kind of just going with the flow, but really, understanding and learning and developing and stuff. But I still talk to a lot of people now. I still try to go to clinics. I go and just definitely just try to build my self up. But everybody that I've come across that's been impactful, I definitely try to take something for them that I found to be successful and good, and definitely try to put my own little twist on it and add it to my repertoire to kind of help me build myself up to where I am now.
Right. That's awesome. I like that. I would 100% agree. I think that as a coach, we have to always evolve. And I've taken stuff from East Coast guys from, obviously I haven't traveled to the East Coast yet to go to any clinics, but they have videos and stuff like that. And Coaches Insider, I follow that a lot. And I would 100% agree. I think that in order for us to be successful, to give the kids, I think it would be a disservice essentially if we didn't do that for our kids. So I 100% agree that, and I like that you are always looking to grow within the sport, and you have a timeline to know, hey, if I know
Oh, yeah.
everything, I'm out.
I mean, that's honestly it. I mean, that's anything. Like, if I feel like I've mastered this, either I'm lying to myself or it's time for me to do something else. Like, I mean, you could just never, because it's always going to change, and that's good because that keeps you on your toes. And our coach told me this a long time ago, man. Only the paranoid survive. So, hey, you gotta, kind of think you're always in danger. I mean, that's kind of the way, wrestler's mindset. Like, hey, I've always gotta keep going. I always gotta keep going. Somebody's gonna be on my back. So I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do to kind of keep yourself in the game and slightly ahead of everybody else.
Right. No, for sure. I 100% agree. So now that we're talking a little bit about your coaching and you as a coach in general, how long have you been coaching, and what's your timeline like? So where did you start? What school did you start at? And how did, where you started at, how did you get to where you're at now?
See, it was what, 2009. This is what, 2023. So 14 years. 2009. Started as volunteer assistant at Chesney High School. They had just started wrestling. One of my friends kind of put me in contact. It was funny because one of the football coaches that, and he's an amazing guy, man. He's really turned into, I mean, he's just a great human being. And I called him and I was like, hey, I heard you looking for an assistant. He was like, yeah, can't really pay you, but, it's definitely an opportunity. And he was like, but I don't know nothing about wrestling. I was like, what? He was like, yeah, it was like first time we ever had wrestling. I don't know. So maybe you can help me and I can help you. So literally we got there, man. And that was the funniest year of and the funny thing is we ended up getting 2 state qualifiers out of it. Like
Oh,
kids,
okay.
man,
All right.
they had never wrestled before. So I spent that whole like off season, definitely recruiting kids and stuff, try to get kids out. And it turned into one of those things. I had to get a real job because I had a child at the time. So I had to kind of figure something out. So fast forward to the next year when I was a year removed from there, they ended up finishing second in the state as a team.
Wow.
Had a couple state champs. Like that was crazy. Like that's one of the biggest, probably fastest turnarounds I think probably in state history, which is insane.
That is, yeah.
And ended up moving on right after that to at Greer High School. I was with Chad Nelson for 3 years and learned a lot from him. I mean, we had some really, really, really good kids through those times, and me and him had a good time, and I definitely learned a lot from him and got developed. And I kind of stepped out on faith and took my first head wrestling coaching job, and I was excited. I came in there guns blazing. Like we ended up having like 40 kids, like I think that first semester. So dumb me, I didn't schedule anything over Christmas break. Come back from Christmas break, I had like 9 kids.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and we like nobody came back, and those were the growing pains, man. I remember like just kind of asking myself why, and trying to figure it out. But after that whole career, we ended up having two state champions out of that. Four kids get all state, ended up making the playoffs. We ended up doing like really well. Went on the west side after that, kind of turned that program back around. Before I got there, I think they were like 2-15 or something crazy like that. The first year I was there, we won the region championship. We went like 21-2. We got a lot of football kids out. Definitely helped change the culture there. Adam Holland, who's my assistant, now the head coach there, has done a phenomenal job with those guys since then. And they ended up finishing in the Final Four in the state dual playoffs this past year. And, went on to Ashland Ridge and had a lot of success there. Had a couple state champs there. We had a region championship. Then went to South Florence, which was most recent high school wise, and it was the first year they ever had wrestling, which was kind of unique, man. Like kids had never wrestled before in their life, and we ended up going like I think 24-6, 24-7 or something. We wrestled for the region championship. We had two kids get all state, first year kids, never wrestled before, and that program's really kind of taken off. And one of those kids is actually here with me now at St. Andrews, and I think Frank won like 15 matches this year. So this man's only been on the mat technically a year, 2 years, and he's really kind of developed. But I've always tried to go places and try to build things up. You always want to leave a room better than the way you found it. I love challenges, and I've definitely and now in probably one of the toughest challenges of my life. But we're starting to figure it out, and I'm very excited, for this recruiting class so far for what we've got coming in and kind of where we're headed as a program. And I think the future is extremely bright here.
Awesome. No, that's awesome, man. And so I guess this isn't a question that I normally ask, but I'm gonna ask you just because you mentioned it. So what was, as a coach, what was the hardest transition from going from high school to college? Because I know as an athlete, it's difficult to transition, right? I mean, not everybody. Some people can step right in and not even blink an eye, right? And some people, it takes them, like you said, 2-3 years into a room to really understand how to wrestle or be successful at wrestling and at the next level. So what was the biggest challenge for you going from high school to college, and what do you think is something that you would be able to, if you could do it again, what would you do right as you had the chance?
Competition level. I think that's one of the biggest things. Like, you used to kind of being the guy in your room, and getting that college room, you realize everybody's in here for a reason. So you gotta kind of adjust. I mean, you gotta be the alpha male. You gotta try to figure out a way. You gotta be the baddest man in the room somehow, some way, and you gotta really put that in your mental and everything you do and every way you carry yourself. Because like I was saying, man, on paranoid surviving, you just got to kind of build that up and really come in there. But and that's an eye opener for a lot of kids. I had some kids here this year that have never really been beat on like that before, and they come in there and get smoked their first college match. They coming off the mat like looking like a deer in the headlights. Like, what just happened? I was like, hey man, gotta take them before you can get them. It's gonna build it's going to build a little accountability. It's going to build a little, toughness in you. But I think that's one of the biggest things. And I mean, universal, I think that's one of the huge things a lot of kids really struggle with is adapting to that college room where everybody's hungry. Everybody's looking for something.
Now, what about you as a coach? What was the hardest part for you going from high school to college?
Competition.
Understand how
Man,
to coach against it.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I try not to. Like, I really try not to hard about wins and losses. I'm just all about kids giving effort and everything. And our first 4 duels this year, we didn't score a single point, and I was like, "What am I doing?" Like, I remember we were coming back from Belmont Abbey and got past behind one of those chicken trucks. And I'm sitting there, feeling sorry for myself. And I'm looking at this truck with all these chickens on it. And it's kind of like I start thinking about the circle of life. I was like, every single one of these chickens are about to die in like the next hour. And I was like, here
Yeah.
I am, kind of having a pity party and feeling sorry for myself. I was like, they have no choice. There is nothing they can do about it. It is about to end. And I was like, you might want to kind of rethink this and, just kind of learn to adjust and start looking at the little things and finding ways to build them up and definitely get them bought in. I mean, we won 6 matches this year, dual wise, and unofficially, what I'm hearing is like that's the most dual wins they've ever had in a single season. And we wasn't very good last year. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, anybody Ray Charles could have seen it, but I think the kids stuck in there. They fought, and we had to piece together our lineup pretty much the whole season. But one thing about it, all of them stayed in the fight. They seen that I was generally, I had their back, they had mine, and we had that whole saying like family over everything, and we pushed and got each other through it, and I think going forward, it's still gonna be an adjustment. I mean, we're still about a year or two away from because our conference is brutal. I mean, you got Life, you got Southeastern. I mean, you got Kaiser, you got St. Thomas, you got Reinhardt. I mean, that's rough. That's rough.
No, it
But
is.
it's very doable. I mean, we gotta, scheduling wise, I think our schedule next year is very so far it's gonna be pretty tough, but just gotta, hey, you gotta be the best, you gotta beat the best, you gotta compete with them, and definitely gotta, go after them. It ain't no hiding. So,
I was about to say that. Yeah, that tough schedules are hard for a rebuilding or a trying to get to that level team. But I appreciate you saying that. I mean, you got to in order to see where you match up against those top teams, you got to compete against them. So,
oh yeah, for sure, no doubt.
be the best. You got to be the best. So, let me ask you this, man. What do you love about coaching, and what do you dislike about it? Is there any loves and hates about it?
I love watching kids be successful, man. And I tell anybody, I part of my downfall, I think, is, and it's, I guess, love and hate all together, is the emotional attachment you get with your kids. Like when they hurt, you hurt. When they're excited, you excited. Because, everybody tells me all the time, like, I'm emotional and stuff. But, I mean, hey, when you see a kid that's put work in and you can feel it, you can look in their eyes, you see them tears and stuff, if you can't get, like, an emotional feeling out of that and
Yeah.
feel that with them, then man, you don't need to be doing it. Like there's just no way. Like I don't care if you could be the worst kid on your team, he's finally getting that first win. The work he's put in, and you see the emotion and stuff come over him, man. I mean, that's like one of the best feelings ever, man. I mean, it's crazy, man. Watching that kid just finally get there, and that's the win for me. I mean, I love it, and seeing them go on and be successful. I mean, that's huge.
Right.
And like I say, that's probably one of my dislikes too, because I think the only way I know how to do anything is go all 100%. And I think sometimes I get too emotionally invested. And, I'm even learning that with recruiting. I mean, you're talking to kids, you're talking to their parents, you feel like it's a connection, everything's going good, then boom, they going somewhere else. And I'm sitting here like, what?
Whoa.
And I was
Yeah.
like, all right, man, you got to kind of stop putting your feelings in that. And, it is what it is. But I think that's one of the biggest things with it. And I mean, that's probably my biggest dislike, and just in general, just dirtbag human beings that are coaches.
Yeah.
That's one of my biggest dislikes. And watch them. I mean, I'm just gonna be straightforward, go back and forth, and just keep being successful. And I know they're like terrible human beings, but somehow they're still doing it. And it's almost like kind of using the sport as I don't know, a way to level up in life, I guess. I don't know. That's a whole nother conversation.
Conversation. No, I
Yeah.
mean, but I understand where you're coming from though. Like you care a lot about your kids and you want them to be in a good environment and around good people, right? That's I mean, if you mentioned you had a kid, like you want your own kids to be around that type of coach. And if you
Yeah.
know if there's a bad coach there, you probably know what is being taught and you don't want that to be rubbed off on that because that's going to translate Hopefully not, especially at college level, right? They're all grown people. They're all adults, but you also know that there is a chance that what they're being taught or how that person's mindset is or whatever is gonna is gonna stay with that person as they leave. And you obviously don't want that. I understand where you're coming from. You just want everybody, you want a good coach, and you want to be, you want those coaches to be good people. And so it frustrates you when they're not. So I understand where you're coming from for sure. That is a frustration of mine too. That I've met a few of those. So I
Jerks
don't.
taking with us, man.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, you're right. So I don't know. It's one of those things. I know you can't have good people everywhere, right? I mean, there's not good people in any there's not always 100% good people in every position, and that could be in the pharmacy. It could be a McDonald's worker. Like, it doesn't matter what level it is, right? There's good people and bad people everywhere, and it just sucks when you encounter a bad person. It's just kind of how it is. But just to finish, I just wanted to go kind of dive a little bit deeper into a little bit about you. So anybody who's still listening at this point, I want to say thank you all for listening, and we're about done. But this is obviously why a lot of you guys wait for us to hear why Mr. Coach Camp here it does what he does. So there's a lot of gems that gets thrown out during this time. So I want to say thank y'all for listening in right now. But this is one of my favorite parts right here, Coach. I like to get this. I take a lot from this part. I know some of the other coaches I've talked to, they also do the same. So feel free to dive as deep as you want, stay as shallow as you want, 100% up to you. But how do you build a successful culture on the level of buy-in and mindset?
Remember your why. I know that's kind of basic, and it's one of the things, like, like I always that's a lot of stuff I was talking about is remember why I'm doing it. Remember why. Like, remember why the biggest things is kids, because one of the biggest things I've always heard, and the coach told me this, is like, how do you spell coaching? And it's LOVE. And that's straight up. Kids are not stupid.
No,
They
they're
know
not.
who's for them, and they know who not. I'm telling you, man, craziest thing I ever did when I first took the job here, it was like 25, 26 kids on roster. And I literally talked to every single kid on this roster in 15-minute intervals the first day I got here. And I was like, that was an overload. But the fact is that everybody stayed, everybody's coming back, and just remember the kid and keeping their best interests at heart. Every kid's different. But the thing is, everybody in life is looking for something.
Right.
Everybody's looking to get accepted. Everybody's looking for something. And if the person tells you that, they're telling you a lie. And just remember it, and just helping these kids just and just getting them to trust you. Like, I'm just always trying to be a genuinely real person. Like, I try to be a real coach. A lot of coaches are very just straightforward and kind of keep their kids at an arm's length, and they only deal with certain kids in the room. And man, you can't do that, because you don't know who you're gonna have to count on, or who needs what, because everybody's, like I said, everybody's looking for something. And I always try to keep that in my mindset and just treat everybody the same and let these kids have an experience. But like, the biggest things is like the wrestling part is the small part. Like, I've always just been about trying to get to know kids, get develop kids, and doing what was in their best interest. That kid could call you at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, going through some life stuff. And you just, showing them you care and talking to them, and, just being there for them. I mean, that goes a long way, because kids don't trust you or they don't believe in you, they're never going to do what you want. But you can't give up on them. And I find myself kind of with that frustration this year, because with a lot of kids. But I was like, man, they've been through some culture changes, and at the end of the day, it's still a kid. I mean,
Right.
that's still somebody's child. And I feel like it's my responsibility, as much as you gotta get them where they need to be. I used to hate like taking kids home from practice sometimes, and take them home. They got like 18 cars in the front yard. I'm like, man, what are we doing? But that parent told me, he was like, y'all want him to do it? Y'all need to make sure he gets home. I was like, you know what? You're right. It is. that is my responsibility, I guess, because I'm taking on. I was like, you know what? So now I don't even look at that negative, and a lot of coaches still, probably kind of look at that. But I mean, hey, you wanted that kid. I mean, that's your part of your job, is your duty, and that's why you do it. And I mean, honestly, like, every day you hear this all the time. Everybody just like, oh, everybody can't be a coach, or everybody, like, you could take that guy's like a 3-time national champion, like one of the best, and they are a terrible coach. It's just
Right.
building relationships with kids, getting them to trust you, and doing a little wrestling on the way. But the life lessons and stuff, and the reason, like I said, is remembering your why. Remember your why, paying it forward, and making kids or giving kids a chance to fall in love with something that you fell in love with, and watching them grow in it is like the beauty of it. I mean,
Right.
it's a beautiful feeling.
Right. No, I understand that completely. I do. And I think that I think some of the most successful coaches have that connection with the kids and families too, right? You can't win everybody, and I know that, or you can't win everybody over. That's just how life goes as a coach. But I do agree that the ones who are in your program who want that, if you give it to them, they'll buy in for sure.
Oh,
Which kind of leads to that next question too. Is on I know you said it's not all about X's and O's and wins and losses and stuff, but how do you build a successful program on the level of wins and losses, and then how do you sustain that over time?
never, it's like one of those things I've learned. Always remember it's your program, and never let nobody, you know, try to kind of push you away from what you believe in. I mean, you stick to your guns no matter what. I mean, you get the kids in, and you got to have standards. And I mean, I know at the end of the day, you're going to lose kids on the way, but you can't compromise like for that kid, just like the rest law policies, that guy, like they come in, and the one kid beats the one kid, and boom, the other kid's got to beat him 2 times now. Then he beats him again. He's got to beat him 3 times, 4 times, so forth, so on. But if the kid is a starter, kid is the number one kid in the country. He's a terrible human being. He's not going to class. He's disrespectful, has low GPA, not doing the things he's supposed to do, not keeping his locker clean. That kid won't be the starter, because you can't reward kids for, crappy behavior as a human being, but reward them for being a good athlete. Like,
Right.
that doesn't make sense, and that'll never make sense to me. So, because at the end of the day, if the other kids working hard and they're doing what they're supposed to, they might not do it right away, but eventually they're going to catch up. They're going to close the distance, and then that just so goes on. But just sticking to your guns, having a non-toxic environment, and that's one of the biggest things.
Right. Sure.
Because that one person, that one thing can bring your program down. So if you got kids that are locked in, 100% believe in what you're doing, they believe in each other, and that's the biggest thing. If they believe in each other, have each other's back, then that it'll grow. Everything will eventually kind of take care of itself. But you just can't, like I said, let nobody in on what you do, And I always ask kids straight up, I'm religious, and God ain't gonna bless no mess, and a family that prays together stays together. I mean, we pray after every practice, come in, big circle, everybody locks arms, everybody puts everything out. It's almost like a big prayer circle, because you never know what your teammates are going through, or what they've got going on, or and everybody just puts everybody's stuff out there. We kind of pray with each other, and at the end, right before we break it, hey, I got your back, I love you, and we do that before every match. And that one goes a long way, because that helps those kids who might be from different genres in life, or different kid from the suburb or kid from the hood, then they find that connection with each other. Like, hey, this is my brother. Like, what I'm
Yep.
saying? He might
We're
be
in this
going through this,
together.
but I got his back. And
Yep.
that goes, like I said, once again, beyond the wrestling, that goes on in life. And that just kind of helps change that narrative on a lot of stuff. And watching a whole group of kids who have nothing in common except really the love of wrestling, they really kind of start to see that, hey man, he ain't too much different than me. Or, hey man, like, this kid's been battling some stuff, and he comes in here every day and work, and here I am, complaining that my girlfriend just broke up with me, and this kid over here is going through some real life stuff. Maybe I need to stop feeling sorry for myself, and
Right.
really kind of come together. But those little things, like I said, those things go a long way, and they really kind of help develop all the
Yeah,
way.
sure. I agree. 100. All right. Well, thanks for sharing that with me. That's awesome, and sharing that with us, I should say. So we got 2 questions left, and one of them is going to be. I like this one because I'm a relatively new coach, right? You've been coaching for 14 years, you said, 14 seasons under your belt. And there's a lot of new coaches who are trying to get into coaching, whatever sport it is. So I like to ask this one just because you got into it and you've been around it for a while, and you've probably encountered a lot of new coaches as well. But do you have any tips or advice for new or struggling coaches?
Stay in the fight, man. Stay in the fight. It ain't gonna happen overnight, and that's the same thing with wrestling. A lot of us, want successful right away, and just don't get discouraged. Stick with your guns. Really be about your kids. Really be about your program and stuff. Build relationships with the kids in the program. Get connections. Definitely endorse your program. Promote your kids like rock stars. Man, I don't care if all your kids were 0-20 and stuff. Ain't nobody got it. Hey, promote
Yeah,
especially on
sure.
social media,
Yep.
because that's really
Agree.
the wave. And kids, everybody's looking for something, and that kid gets a simple shout out on something like that. I mean, that goes a long way. And I'm not saying like you necessarily blowing smoke. You just treat them like a rock star they are, because anybody that steps on that circle, man, they automatically get respect, because it's tough. And
Yep.
if you can go out there and you can withstand it, that's automatic instant respect. And
Yep.
we can't never really lose sight of that. So I mean, his biggest things is like, again, stick to your guns, stay in the fight, man. Just stay in the fight. And I had to tell myself that several times this year. Just stay in the fight and keep pushing. It's all gonna work out.
I like that. Keep pushing. I like that. Stay in the fight. Okay. Um, so I'm gonna ask you this. Do you have a favorite quote that you like to do? My personal favorite quote is comparison is the thief of joy. I think that one's a big one. Um, I think that it's easy to get caught up in seeing other people's success. And as you mentioned earlier, you're in a tough conference with obviously Life University, their girls program, right? Um, their boys program is also up top, and you have all those other ones, Southeast and Reinhardt, and obviously those. So it's easy to compare yourself and where you are with them, but it also takes away the joy of the process, takes away the joy of why you're in it. So I personally like comparison is the thief of joy. Um, do you have a quote that you like to live by or that you like to approach things with?
This is funny, man, because one of my kids at one of the high schools, shout out Justin Mata, I'll never forget this as long as I live. He actually used it as his senior quote in the yearbook. But it's gonna hurt before it feels good.
There, yeah, true, yeah.
That could be taken way a lot of ways, but I mean that's the truth.
It
Like, I
can,
mean,
yeah, it can be, yeah,
it's gonna suck, but hey, it's just like that storm before the rainbow, man. That's kind of what it is, and
yeah,
got to go through it to get to it. You're gonna have to take them, kind of get kicked in the teeth a little bit to understand it and feel it. But once it feels just like learning a wrestle move, I'm leaving it hands on. Like, hey, do you see how this feels? Do you understand the why? Hey, you gotta go through it. You gotta feel it to understand it, and get through it. And I'm just gonna keep sticking with that, man. It's gonna hurt before it feels good. You remember that, and just like I said, stay in the fight and keep pushing.
no, I like that. I like that one a lot. So we're on to our final question. Keep pushing. It's gonna hurt before it feels good. All right, I like those. I'm gonna put those down in my notes here. But before I do that, my final question is, you've mentioned it a few times. So I know I kind of already know, and if the listeners are in tune with it, they're gonna understand it. But my favorite question, um, why do you coach? What is your why?
I love it, man. I love it. And try not to. I just sit here thinking about it, and I've been thinking about it the whole time, trying not to get emotional. But I mean, wrestling probably saved my life, man. And yeah, I could have been a lot of other places, and wrestling's done more for me in my life than anything else, man wise. Like, it's always been there, and it's always helped me get through hard times and just really and just love life. And I just love it. I mean, and wrestling is a very love-hate relationship. I mean, either you love it or you don't. And I truly love it. I mean, we all have our little burnout moments and stuff,
Right.
mentally stuff. At the end of the day, man, I love it, and I love what it's done for people, you know, in my circle, and I love what it's doing for our kids, especially with the accountability and how to handle adversity and how to push through things. And you know, it's beautiful, and you know, I go through all these battles all over again if I had to. You know, I don't regret anything, especially when it comes with wrestling and what it's done. Like I'll do it all over again, and you know, that's my biggest thing.
Love it. Love it. I like that. Well, Coach, I appreciate you getting on here, man. I had a really good time today. Learned a lot. I mean, we haven't really spoken that deep before or really about anything like that outside of just surface level talking about some of the kids and stuff like that. So I really appreciate you jumping on and taking the time, and I'm glad we're able to get this figured out. Um, but is there anything before we get off that you want to say? Before we sign off today, like I said, I appreciate you jumping on and all the listeners listening through. You know, I know that they've taken some things, and if they were in tune with everything, I know that there's some things that you know, hopefully they can take and implement into their own coaching philosophies or just how they approach some things.
One thing, hey, always first. Hey, anybody still looking for a home, looking for a chance to get better, come on out, man. We're
Yep.
a small NA institution right here in Lawrenceburg, North Carolina. Application's free, takes a couple minutes, test optional, man. I mean, you're looking for a chance, don't care where you're at, man. If you're just looking for opportunity, hey, I'm 100% willing to talk and definitely seeing what we can do. You know, email is campma@sa.edu. Again, camp, campma@sa.edu. And any coaches out there, like, hey, just stay in the fight, fellas, ladies. Just keep pushing. Remember your why. Don't let nobody steal your joy, and just keep remembering why you're doing it, and just keep pushing and keep elevating our next group of young people up to the next level, and just staying. And that goes for coaches and wrestlers. Hey, just keep pushing, man. It's all gonna work out. Don't give up on yourself. You know, don't give up on each other, and just help each other navigate all the way through, man.
For sure. Well, I appreciate that. I'll put your email, I'll put Coach's email in the description below on YouTube and on Spotify and all the other whatever you're listening to this on. I'll put his email in the description below, so that way if any coaches or any athletes want to reach out, he's very easy to get in touch with and very good at communication, so he'll get back to you whenever he has an opportunity to. So with that being said though, Coach, I appreciate you jumping on. Thank you for taking the time to, you know, just talk a little bit with me and to us about everything. So I look forward to continuing our conversations, and hopefully we can get you back on at some point.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yes, sir. With that being said, thank you guys for listening to the Coach's Why. I'm Kason. This is Coach Camp, and we'll talk to you guys later. Thank you.